Hello, this is Nadia from Urban Farm Sista. I created a video today because a lot of you had questions regarding what type of lighting you should use for your indoor gardening. So with this presentation, I plan to cover a few topics, one of which is the different types of lighting there are. Also, I'll cover the light spectrum and what that means to your plants and growing indoors. And also, I'll cover the different stages and what the different stages of plants need as far as lighting is concerned. So with that, let's get started. Okay, before I explain the difference between the three lights, I want to just cover a little bit of terminology. This might be a little boring, but I feel it's necessary that you learn this information. So the first word is lumens. Lumens are a unit of measurement for the amount of light given off. The more lumens, the brighter the light will be. Watts is the amount of energy needed to produce that light. Kelvin is a unit of temperature measurement. The light spectrum in grow lights is expressed in degrees Kelvin, and that's a number that indicates a visual temperature. It's on a scale. Okay, so there are three common types of grow lights. There's fluorescent, which includes the T8 and T5, and also compact fluorescent, which are also known as CFLs. There's high intensity discharge lights, or HIDs, and this includes the high pressure sodium bulbs and the metal halide bulbs. Also, there's light emitting diodes, are also known as LEDs. Alrighty, now say you're going to the hardware store and you walk down the fluorescent light bulb aisle, and this is what you'll see. You'll see a sign that says choose the right color tone, and you'll see a picture that has colors of red, yellow, orange, white, and blue. What this picture scale is showing you is the temperature color that the fluorescent lights can give off. Okay, so let's look at this light temperature scale a little bit closer. When you're purchasing your lights, they'll always have a degree Kelvin number on them. So high pressure sodium bulbs are usually in the 2200 K, while metal halide bulbs, warm metal halide bulbs, are in 3200. Standard clear metal halides are in 4000. Cool white fluorescents are in 4200. Daylight metal halides are in 5500. And daylight white lights, fluorescent lights, they're usually in the 6500 range. Now, I actually purchased the other day a light that was 8,000 kelvins, and it was actually a fluorescent T8. And I haven't even tried it out yet because they're kind of new, so they're not very common. And I just happened to just stumble across it the other day when I was in Menards. So I'm going to test it out to see how actually bright it is. But when you're actually going to purchase your lights, this is what you need to look at. And I'll explain now why that's important. Okay, so for this image, it's showing the scale at which plants actually go through a vegetative state, or a vegging state, as they call it here. What that is where you have the seedling all the way up to prior to actually flowering. So any type of vegetative growth, which is actually the leaves. And usually that occurs in the 4500 to 8000 K range. Now, when it comes to actually flowering, your plants are going to prefer to utilize the range of 2000 to 4000. In actuality, when the plants are outside in the sun would give them all of the spectrums of light that they need to grow. But when you're growing indoors, you have to kind of play nature or mimic the sun by utilizing the different um, types of lighting. So a lot of times when people set up their systems indoors, they'll start out with the cool blue uh, lights, which are in what they call the blue, called cool spectrum. And when their plants are ready to start flowering, then they'll either leave the blue light there and uh, supplement in a warm light, or they will eliminate the blue light and just have the warm lights. It's kind of better to have both because the plant is still getting both the blue and also the warm light, which will aid in more vegetation growing, but also help the plants actually flower and then also fruit. And this image just shows you when you're actually in a store, especially in a hardware store, what exactly to look for on the label as far as kelvins and also lumens. The reason lumens are important is because that's the actual brightness of the light. The higher the lumens, the brighter the light, which means you cover a larger area that is actually receiving this light. Um, the smaller the lumens would be the smaller the area. So say you had this particular light that's 2750 for the lumens. With just that one light, you would have 2,750 lumens. But most of the times when you have your grow fixtures, they'll have 2 or 4 or 6 lights. So you add those numbers together and they'll give you the exact lumens that you have all together. And the more lights you have, of course, the brighter it's going to be, which means you can light up a larger area. When it comes to using LEDs, a lot of times they will have the actual lights to be in different spectrums all on one light fixture. Like in this example here, you have red, you have blue, you have green, and sometimes they'll actually have clear as well. And what that's just trying to do is emulate the actual color spectrum. I don't have any LED lights. They're very expensive to buy. Some people say they're the best thing ever. Some people say they do all right. I'm not sure. I know it takes a lot of LED lights to cover a large area. And that's why a lot of people don't have them, because you can only do a small area. And to have to buy multiple LED fixtures would just be astronomical as far as money is concerned. As with the LEDs, the same thing is true with the CFLs. You need a lot more lights to cover a larger area. A lot of people that use CFLs, they usually use them in a grow box, especially when they're trying to grow marijuana and things under radar. The reason CFLs are so good is because you get a fluorescent light, but you're not using as much wattage. But I think after you link together 8, 10 CFLs, you could have just purchased a regular T8 or T5 light fixture, because in the end you're going to end up paying the same amount of money by linking all these lights together. But like I say, a lot of people they like the CFLs because of the less wattage used, but you have to use a lot of them to cover a larger area because they do not give off a lot of lumens. Okay, so here we have a high pressure sodium light. It's 600 watts. It's also a high output. This is a very expensive light fixture. Plus the bulbs are like between $50 and $60. And this light is very, very bright. It also gets very, very hot. So if you're in a place that's not well ventilated, you need to have a fan connected to it to keep it cool. It also has a very heavy ballast that goes along with it. This light in particular is used for fruiting
and also flowering of your plants. Um, I'm going to hook it up so you can see how bright it is. It also kind of distorts the camera because of the spectrum of light that's given off. And the high pressure sodium bulb is very, very bright. It's hard to tell in this video, but it's like having the sun sitting right here in the room with you. And this is only a 600 watt. There's also a 1000 watt. You can also notice from the color, um, the light is yellow versus when I had the T5 on, the light kind of gave off a blue color to it. And the reason for that is the spectrum of light that these particular bulbs give off versus the T5. Um, the high pressure sodium bulbs, they're actually in the warm temperature spectrum, while the T5s are in the cool temperature spectrum. Warm temperatures usually are yellow, red light wavelengths given off, while the T5s are more of the blue and white light, if depending on how far you get up into the kelvins. I believe this one is 2400 kelvins, while the T5 was 6500 kelvins. And this light would be used for fruiting and also for flowering. So this light would be very important if you were trying to grow tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, zucchini, any type of fruiting flower indoors. You would have to have this light because they need that wavelength of light to actually develop the fruit and also the flowers to actually make the fruit. And it starts to distort the camera a little bit. It'll start having some black lines going through here. Something with that wavelength in the camera's frame per pixel. They just don't correlate together. It's really bad on my iPhone. And this ballast is what powers the high pressure sodium in the metal halide bulbs. This thing is very heavy and it also gets hot. So if you're growing with one of these and you have kids or animals around, you need to put it up and away because they can get burnt on this. And the max wattage for this ballast is 1000 watts. So any bulbs over that would cause some problems. This is both lights on together. You can see the yellow versus the blue looking light. Like I say, this gets very, very hot. And these, they'll get a little warm, but they're not hot. They don't even have a ballast with their system.
I haven't really discussed it, but the major differences between T5s and T8s are the the price and also the distance that you have to have the light from the plants. If you purchase a T8 light fixture at 6500K, it's pretty equivalent to a T5 at the same Kelvin. The only difference is with the T8, you'll have to have the light pretty close to the plant so that they can actually absorb the light. Where when you have a T5, it actually is better at penetrating the plant leaves to actually give the plant the light spectrum that it needs at a further distance. The advantage with using fluorescent lights is you can put the light pretty much on the plant without it actually burning it. Now, when it comes to the high pressure sodium bulbs, you could not do that. You would cook your plants and then probably have a fire because those lights get very, very hot. Also, with the T5s and T8s, like I said, the price, there's a major difference. You can go to any hardware store and buy a T8 light fixture, probably around between $11 to $20. They're always on sale, and you can pretty cheap. But when it comes to a T5, that price will like triple. And like I say, the advantage is that you can you can put the light further away from the plants. Also, with the T5s, you get more lumens for less wattage. So there's an advantage there. You're saving money in the long run because you're using less wattage versus when you use the actual T8s. But that price, I would say, is not too much of an advantage to spend more on a T5 versus a T8. I happen to like the way T5s grow the plants, but the T8s will do it as well. This concludes my video, and I just want to give you this short take-home message about grow lights. Basically, if you're trying to grow leafy greens or if you're trying to start plants from seed and you're trying to initiate vegetative growth, you're going to want to use a fluorescent light. It can be a T5, T8, or CFL. Depends on what you're trying to grow and the amount of plants you're trying to grow and the space you're actually growing in. If you're going to be in a larger space, you probably want to use a T5 or T8 light fixture. If you're in a small condensed space, CFLs will probably fit you better. When you go and purchase your lights, you need to look for lights that are in at least the 5,000 Kelvin range. 6,500K is better or more. This particular spectrum of light will actually initiate vegetative growth. If you're using T8 fixtures, also with T5s and CFLs, it's probably best to put the light as close as possible to the plant, especially when they're first forming, because if you don't, you're going to have leggy long plants because they're trying to reach towards the light. And it's just best to put it right there so they don't have to do that stretching. Now, if you're growing plants like tomatoes, peppers, and things like that that will require flowering later on in their development, you're going to want to start with a fluorescent light to actually get them to do the vegetative growth. But then you're going to want to supplement a warm light, which could be a high pressure sodium, a metal halide, or a high output warm fluorescent light. If money's no object, you can use LEDs, and there are a lot of LEDs out there that cover the entire light spectrum in one light fixture. Just remember that LEDs, it takes a lot of LEDs to cover a large area. So if you're trying to grow a room full of plants, you're going to need a lot of light LED fixtures versus if you're just trying to grow one little plant, you'd probably be fine with one light fixture. If at all possible, if you're in an area that's warm, you can put your plants outside. Sunlight is always the best light. But if you can't, you can always mimic the sun indoors using fluorescent light, high pressure sodium bulbs, metal halides, and LEDs. So if you have any questions, just send me an email. And like I said, I'm going to try to do a discussion and I'll schedule that and I'll let you guys know as soon as I have that scheduled so that we can discuss this if you have any questions or any other questions about growing indoors. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.